Hello and welcome to Sally Talk Live. I took a 2-week vacation from doing the podcast, and so now I'm back, and I am late today because I was struggling with a graphic, but it's all good. Also, I just drove home from Washington State. I have 2 sons who are working at a hotel up there in Cathlamet, and that's how you say it. It's like Cathlamet, Washington. And it's a really, really cool place. It is on the Columbia River. It's really beautiful. And there's like a population of 500 people. And it's funny how I take for granted living in a community where I live, where I can just go down the street and get whatever I want. And they have to, drive 20 minutes or so to get to, any of the food establishments or anything that you're used to, or big grocery stores and stuff. They have a couple little places, but it was beautiful. And on the Columbia River right there is where Lewis and Clark, when they were doing their big expedition after the United States purchased the Louisiana Purchase, Lewis and Clark went down the Columbia River, and it's very, very hard to navigate because the currents are super strong. It's right there. It empties out into the Pacific Ocean, and the Pacific Ocean actually comes in to the river. So I learned a word, brackish. That's when saltwater and freshwater are kind of mixed in a river at the mouth. And there are a lot of shipwrecks there, and a lot of boats tried to get in there. And so the Cathlamet Native Americans came out in their canoe to help Lewis and Clark after trading with them and offering them a meal and everything else, took them out to the Pacific Ocean at the end of their excursion. So there's a little history lesson for you. I love going to places and learning all about the history. That's one of my favorite things to do. And I want to look up this one guy who brought his 10 children from New York State to move there and open up a trading post, and nobody else lived there. So except for the Native Americans, and his wife was a Native American, so she could mix in. But the Native Americans there lived in houses, in pine houses. So I thought that was interesting too. What we don't know about Native American is a lot, right? There's a lot to learn there. So anyway, so I left day before yesterday, and my youngest son and I drove 7.5 hours, 8 hours, and then we stayed in Reading, and then yesterday we drove 7.5, 8 hours home. And so that's really something. But so today I wanted to talk. So today I really didn't have anything prepared, and I was half thinking, well, maybe I won't do it, because that's the luxury, right? When it's something that's yours, you can not do it. And then I thought, no, I'll do it. And then something sparked my interest, so I thought, well, I'll talk about that, and it won't be a real long one. On the drive yesterday, I listened to a 4-hour podcast, a Joe Rogan Experience podcast, talking about the how there was a huge ice age. At the end of the ice age, there was a huge flood, and there are these 2 guys who've done all this research, and it's really interesting about, they think it might have happened by a meteorite, and which melted the ice and caused this big wash of water coming down through the United States, and of really affecting the whole world. And maybe that's the Atlantis connection. So maybe there really was an Atlantis. I don't know. It was so interesting. And that's the kind of freak I am. I can listen to something like that for 4 hours. I really can. So I don't know. I don't know why that is, but I've always been able to listen to that kind of stuff. So that helped me. But it also made me think about podcasts and how, maybe somebody is sitting and listening to this right now and just enjoying it. And that's great. So I'm glad to bring it to you. So today I was going to talk about gratitude, because what sparked that was I was catching up on a lot of my social media, because when you're driving, can't do much social media, and you shouldn't. So I was catching up on a lot of it and watching some things and stuff like that. And so it just hit me because I heard that motivational speaker Jay Shetty was being interviewed by Ellen in a little short bite. And he was talking about how you need to live in gratitude, and that every night you should write in your gratitude journal And then in the morning, you should write in your gratitude journal so that you wake up in the morning in gratitude, you end your day in gratitude, how important that was. He was a monk for 3 or 4 years, and he's very interesting. But it did hit me for a second, and I was thinking that, easier said than done. And I think that's really true. And one of the things that I've been learning the last 3 years is that there's so many things that happen in life that are really hard. And so when people say, oh, you should live in gratitude, those of us over here in the tragedy world, we're kind of like, well, that's easier said than done. Sometimes something really bad happens to you and it's hard for you to get to that gratitude place. And so I'm not saying that you're not supposed to be there. Absolutely not. I mean, I absolutely agree that living in gratitude is important, but I do think we default to not living in gratitude. And I think we need to acknowledge that. A lot of my reading and listening and everything that I've been doing this last 3 years is really made me feel better, because I think you feel less than if you think, wow, other people are able to do it and I just can't do it. Well, the truth is that studies show, or many people say, and philosophers and everything else, that we default to not living like that. We definitely, the tug to us is to not do that, because it's easier to complain and it's easier to be critical. And I was reading in one of the things that I was looking at that kind of like lined up for this podcast, for this episode, was that Plato said, no philosophy until you're after 30. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that's because we do tend to, when we're young, we tend to default, I think, to some of those things. And it's difficult. It's harder to live in gratitude, especially if you're looking for a job and you can't find a job, or you have a loved one that's sick, or you have a lot of struggles and a lot of challenges. Sometimes it's hard to wake up in the morning and go, oh gosh, I'm so grateful that I had a bed to sleep in. When you're older, I think you see so many stories and you hear so many stories of people who don't have beds to sleep in, that you go, oh, wow, I'm lucky to have this bed to sleep in. But I do think it's a tug. And I think we're constantly, if we acknowledge the fact that we're constantly being tugged into the place of not being grateful, I think then that helps us at least acknowledge that, and you go, okay, all right, so I'm not crazy. I do have this tug. And so that it's an active effort to be grateful. It's an active thing to wake up in the morning and think that. And so one of the things that kind of triggered this episode was I was reading, a friend of mine was at a theater and went to see a show, and as the cast was taking their bows and getting the applause and everything, this group that was sitting with them in the row got up to leave, and made, and those seats they're like airplane seats, they're so smushed together, and they pushed their way through and like ruined that experience for them with the casting call. And I would not have been happy with that. That is one thing is really, talk about a pet peeve with me. I don't like talking during concerts. I don't mind people looking at each other and going, oh gosh, he's so funny. That's great. Oh, I love this song. That's great. But sitting there and talking about how hard it was to get there on the 101, or going into a whole conversation that you would have at a coffee shop, you don't have that at, a theater, when other people around you pay good money to see the person on stage, not you. And so that's always been a thing for me. But I was thinking about that, about wanting to get up and leave, because that's what they were doing. They were getting up to leave early. It happens all the time. We see it all the time. We see it at our conventions, not so much this last convention, which was great, my business convention, but which means it was a very great convention. You can always tell, but people getting up early to go get online for food, or get up early to leave to get online to get out of the parking structure, to get up and go, and not just be there and not experience and be present, which I think goes hand in hand with gratitude. Just being grateful where you are right now. And then to mess it up for everybody around you is really something. My favorite thing is when the people take the bows. That's one of my favorite things is in a show, is to watch people take bows. I cry, actually. I really do. I cry. All you have to do is wrap up. I have on my Spotify the last, the finale of Les Miserables, and then the applause. It always makes me cry. I just think it's the culmination of so much hard work. All those people put together, and you're watching not just the time put in for that show. You're watching the time put in by the musicians, the performers, how long it took them to learn how to sing, how long it took them to learn how to perform, and to bring this piece together that everyone in the room all together just witnessed. And just to be there for that, for the casting, the bowing is my favorite. That's really my favorite part of the whole show. I'm a mess. It all started, I remember the first time it really hit me was I lucked out. I was in New York and with an old boyfriend, and he was a playwright, and he had written a play that was going to be read and off Broadway, and we were in New York for that. And we were going around, and we got the twofer tickets. So I used to call it twofers, but I guess it's TKTS to New Yorkers. And you go to the booth, and then if there's something open, you can get tickets. And so we lucked out and got tickets to Secret Garden, Mandy Patinkin, and it was the opening night. So I guess, it was back before Broadway was so huge. I mean, it was always popular, but there was a time there where it wasn't as popular. So we lucked out. We got the balcony, and it was a beautiful, beautiful show. Everybody was all dressed up. It was funny, and we weren't, but we didn't care. And it was a beautiful, beautiful show. And I at the end, the 8-year-old who played Mary, the main character of Secret Garden, which is one of my favorite stories, she was her first time on Broadway. It was opening night for her first time on Broadway. So she came out to get her at the end, because she's the star. She goes out to get her curtain call, and everyone goes crazy. And she runs back and hugs Mandy Patinkin. And Mandy Patinkin picks her up, and up on his shoulder, like kind of is on his arm and on his shoulder. And he walks out, and in typical, Broadway theater fashion, puts his arm out and goes, "Now, tell her how much you love her." And everyone went nuts, and she started to cry. And I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. And that's when I went, I'm never going to leave a movie. I'm never going to leave. Like, I don't think I thought that, but I mean, I never leave anything early. I'm always the last one. I'm the last one to watch credits. I'm the last one to leave, because I don't like to miss those kind of things. And so what struck me with that, and then I was watching another video it was the Jay Shetty about being in gratitude morning and night, and then that, and I just really thought about it, and I went, you know what, I have to be honest, I'm not always living in gratitude, and I catch myself many times feeling sorry for myself, or wishing things were different, or wondering what I'm doing wrong. I mean, I definitely do that just like anybody else. But I think it's really important to recognize, to journey back. That's going back into the default. So don't beat yourself up over it, because you're literally swimming against the current. I was talking about the Columbia River has a really strong current, has a very strong current, and ships crashed. And I think that's what happens as we get older. We have a lot on our shoulders, and there's a lot of burden and a lot of things that have happened to us. And the current can be stronger to pull you the other way. And you just have to train yourself to pull yourself back and put yourself into gratitude. And I think it's very important that I think gratitude very much is synonymous with being present and being just part of what's going on right now and what's happening right now. And I think maybe that's why I like driving so much, and driving up north and then driving back. I really do like driving. I mean, it's hard on my legs, and my legs get super stiff from being in the car for a really long time. But I do like the sense of being, even though I might be listening to a podcast or something, I'm definitely present and I'm watching the road and I'm traveling. Whereas we get into a plane and we're just looking to a distraction to distract us from the what's going on around us and the other travelers, and it's so cramped and so crowded and all that. And I'm just not a big plane flyer. I'd like to fly the plane. That's what I'd like to do. So anyway, my thing today was I was just thinking about that, and I was thinking about how it's not as easy to be in gratitude, but but we need to figure out ways to get us back into gratitude, to not beat ourselves up for coming out because it's what our default wants to do, and to pull ourselves back. It's just an active thing. It's like exercise or anything else. It's an active thing that we need to do, and we need to train ourselves. And one of my little tricks is because as a single mom of 4, I've had a lot of dishes to wash and a lot of places, I've had housekeepers here and there, but I've had a lot of cleaning houses and a lot of laundry and a lot of that stuff. And I love music, and music helps me. And one of my recent things in the last few years is I've put on Itzhak Perlman playing the theme music to Schindler's List. And that may sound like sad and depressing, but to me, I figure if people can make it out of a concentration camp, I can clean my house. And it really puts me in gratitude because I don't look at it as poor me anymore, that's for sure. So maybe you don't need to do something that dramatic. I kind of needed to, especially after what I'd been through. Sometimes I needed things that were really dramatic to kind of shake me up and pull me out. But I really think that it's just important to have your mechanisms and to do what you think you need to do to get you started on the right foot. And one other thing I've done is I was telling a friend of mine up in that I visited, one of my old friends, my dear old friends, I told her I take her friendship for granted. Think about that. Like, how many friendships do you take for granted? I mean, I don't reach out to her as much as I should because I just know she's there, but that's not right. We caught up on a lot of stuff, and there was a lot of stuff that I didn't know about. And if I had been more in contact with her, I would have known. So that's another thing of being grateful for long friendships of people that you can always count on, and not taking them for granted. That's one of my new things. But I was telling her, she's an interior decorator, so her house is always gorgeous, and I love every little corner of her house is so beautiful. But I was telling her that we used to be roommates, and I was telling her she'd be really proud of me because I've been making up my bed. I made my bed very pretty, and then I've been making it up every morning. And I feel like that's a good way to start in gratitude and end in gratitude. If you have a beautiful bed, with the covers that you like and the blanket that you like and everything about it is what you like, you sleep in it and you get up in the morning in it and you come back to it at night and it's all made up and pretty, that's a start, right? So anyway, I just wanted to share that with everything I've been through, I think that gratitude isn't easy, but I think it's absolutely something we aim at. It's definitely what we aim at and work on, because it's definitely worth it, because it does make you feel like you're part of the world. It makes you feel better. Makes you feel like you have something to offer. It makes you feel like, and makes you feel very grateful that there people there for you. And it just puts you in a better headspace. So that's it. And that's 19 minutes. So I see. That's me and my talking. I can talk about anything, right? I just hope it was beneficial to you. So I am 100% focusing on my Arbonne business because I'm very, very close to getting to the top of the company. So I'm separating this out. I don't think I'm going to talk much about business here on my podcast, but if you have any interest in my business, I'm an independent consultant with Arbonne International. I've been with them. It'll be 22 years on July 1st. I'm very happy with them. It's saved me, and I'm a full-time consultant. I make full-time money. I don't work full-time, but I definitely work the business, and I love it. So if anyone's ever interested, you can always check me out at Sally Hallada. It's SallyHallada.Arbonne, ARBONNE.com, and find me on Instagram. But I'm going to keep doing these and figure out what I'm going to do with my podcast episode. I love it, and I love listening to other people's podcasts. So I'm going to see where this takes me. So thanks so much for listening. Make it a great week, and we will talk again soon. Goodbye.